Hey everybody, what is going on? Wanted to make a quick video to go over this topic. A lot of people have questions about it, so let's explain something. I'm a big advocate. If you can't explain something simply, shut up. Stop talking to people. You're just going to confuse people. And there's a lot of people out there, and I know I do a job of catching myself. Say, hey, if I don't know something well enough, I just keep my mouth shut. So to give clarity and educate, let's go over this. Double brokering, the illegal dark side of the freight industry. Again, my name's Paul. That's my website, myfreightnetwork.com. Check it out. So let's get into the particulars of what the heck double brokering is. And let's just kind of walk through a quick life cycle of loads in transit and double brokering that takes place. And I'll kind of move aside when we get there. So step number one, broker obtains loads from the shipper. Okay, self-explanatory. What is it? Step number two, broker chooses a carrier to transport their customer's freight. Pretty self-explanatory. Step number three, carrier or fraudulent party engages in illegal brokering the freight to another carrier. So they're doing this without informing the broker that they're giving the load to somebody else. They're doing it outside of the broker's purview. The broker doesn't know that they're doing this. Step number four, the second carrier transports and delivers the cargo to the receiver. That's if we're lucky. Sometimes if the load is double brokered out, maybe the product is just stolen. That happens a percentage of the time. But since we're going through chronologically, we're going to go through this. And then step number five, if a fraudulent carrier is involved in this double brokering process, best case scenario process, the second carrier does not get paid. The first carrier gets paid, or the first carrier doesn't get paid at all because the broker has realized I gave the load to this guy and they've double brokered to this guy. This is the guy that delivered the load, but this is the one who has been given the rate con, and these guys fraudulently created a rate con and gave it to these guys with their name on it, and they're both trying to submit a BOL and a POD to get paid through the factoring company, but there's a raycon with the same load number, the same PO numbers, but two different MC numbers for two different carriers moving the load, but only one BOL and one POD. Doesn't add up. So that's the double broker life cycle from A to Z, going back and forth. Sometimes the product just gets stolen and the load is double brokered, or sometimes the carrier could just grab the freight and get all the way to the receiver and say, this is double brokered to me, but since my name isn't on the paperwork, you got to pay me $4,000 and then I'll deliver this load. So they kind of use that as leverage with the broker and the shipper, meaning, hey broker, I'm going to steal your freight and not deliver this unless you pay me $4,000, and you'll have to file on your insurance. There might be a filing on that shipper, on that broker's bond, and that broker might lose a $1 million yearly client. So you're going to pay us $4,000 and then we'll deliver this load for you. So it was originally given to this carrier. They illegally gave it to the other carrier, and that carrier is the one at the receiver committing the fraud, saying, hey, we're just going to hold this hostage. We're not going to deliver it. The receiver's right across the street. We're here. It's just right across the street, but we're not going to drive over there, and we know that we're not supposed to have this freight on our truck. So pay us $4,000, and it's shady. It's shady. It happens. Load boards and brokers doing surveys and the results on fraud. Interesting statistics and data for us to kind of look at real quick. 24% of respondents faced legal implications of fraud, filing on insurance, filing on broker bonds, money getting held up for long periods of time, 6 months or forever and nobody gets paid because it's fraud. It's not real. 65% of respondents lost money due to fraud. Sure, yeah. 65% of loads, not cool. 78% of respondents lost time resolving fraud issues. Yeah, this takes time. It takes time to do the investigation and, losing sleep and losing a customer. Yeah, no amount of money bought 1 second of time. Anyway, interesting statistics. Here is a pretty cool little bullet point. I'm not going to go over all of these, but I found this online and it's true. This is some great data. Looks like it goes all the way to 21. But I'm going to sort of pick out some of them and we'll just talk about it briefly to give you my perspective since I was a broker and now I'm a freight factor, sitting on both sides of the table, seeing the full circle of how this works and being able to explain that to you so you can understand. So what is a double brokering red flag as a broker? If the broker has picked up the phone and he's talking to a carrier, what's a flag that broker is listening for or seeing online with what they can see online when they're looking up your DOT or MC number? So recent active authority, there's pushback with that. Everybody knows that. TQL is going to be your lion's share of business for your first 90 days. And then, every 30 days after 90 days, more and more and more and more brokers you'll be able to work with. And it's just like a waterfall. More business comes your way. You just got to keep pushing forward. But it's a slight flag for a broker, recent active authority. Multiple recent address changes. If there's somebody on carrier 411, a carrier, and they have a bunch of different addresses in here and they only have one truck, I'm probably not going to book with them. That seems weird. Why would you be updating your address from, California to Florida to Philadelphia? That's concerning. That's concerning. Insurance certificate policy for all equipment are missing and not produced. So, as a factoring company, we require that you have a copy of your insurance that you send to us, your COI. A broker, they want to have a copy of your insurance policy that you're insured, that you're legally insured as a business, and you're legally insured to transport freight that is being given to you. In case the truck caught on fire, you got in an accident or whatever, it's insured. If you're talking to a carrier on the phone, if a broker is talking to a carrier on the phone, and they've asked the carrier repeatedly 3 or 4 times, hey, I need a copy of your certificate of insurance, and that carrier doesn't produce it, well, if they don't have it, means they're not insured, and that's probably a red flag, and we'll label, hey, this is a potential, this could be somebody being shady and trying to do a double brokered load and steal the freight. Motor carrier with a PO box, I don't think that would really concern me too much, but it would be nice to, see an address, Google it, and there's a house on Google Maps, because most carriers are out there are just one truck, one driver operations for the most part. Not all. There's bigger trucking companies and 3 to 4 truck operations, but most freight across the United States moves with small LLCs that just have one truck and one driver. Let's see here. Driver or dispatcher refusing to give out the driver's cell phone number. Yeah, that annoys the heck out of me. I know when I was a broker and I book a load, I'm booking the load at 5:45 on a Friday. I want to leave the office. I want to go home. But the customer, the shipper, is still barking at me to get this load moved, and I accepted the load and I told them that I could get it moved, so I need to find a truck on the open market. But with that said, I got the carrier on the phone. We're doing the onboarding setup packet. I got their W-9, their notice of assignment for the factoring company, their copy of their insurance. I'm like, hey, give me the driver's phone number. Oh yeah, we'll give you in a moment. Okay, fine, whatever. And I'm booking it with this one phone number with this one guy, but I'm waiting for the phone number for the driver, and they just never give it to you. They never give you it. And it's like, okay, it's 5:45 on a Friday. I want to leave. I want to get out of the office, but they're not giving me the phone number. It's like, well, shoot. 30 minutes has gone by. It's probably 6:15 p.m. now on Friday. I don't have a phone number for the driver. I could roll the dice and keep it with this carrier and they never give me the driver information. My broker, my general manager is not going to be happy with me with doing that. I could do it and cross the fingers and roll the dice that it does get picked up and it does get moved and we never have tracking on the driver. And if I need tracking updates, I'm just calling whoever I was talking to on the phone, maybe just the dispatcher. I'm just calling the dispatcher, asking the dispatcher, hey, I need a current location, city and state, where's the driver right now in transit? I can do that, but it's going to make the weekend stressful. I'd rather just have the driver's phone number and be able to communicate with them directly. So if that's not being provided to the broker's going to be concerned. I would and have been and had horrible weekends thinking about it all weekend long. Let's see here. Refusal to track on the apps. Tracking apps, Macro Point, Forekites, a couple other ones. That's part of a process when you give the carrier a load and they have accepted the rate confirmation, but they don't download Macro Point or Forekites to track while in transit. So somebody on the weekend doesn't have to pick up the phone on Saturday twice, Sunday twice, call that carrier and say, I need a city and state location, and then they log into their portal and they type in the zip code and it updates and it pings to the customer so they can see the truck in transit on its way to the delivery. If the carrier is not accepting the Macro Point tracking within 30 minutes of them receiving the rate confirmation, we could just kick them off and find a different carrier to do the load because they're not being compliant to do tracking. And our customer, Walmart, Coca-Cola, they want the truck to be tracking. Yeah, it's concerned. Kick them off and find a different carrier. It's important that you're tracking on your loads. Requesting a lesser rate than posted on the amount. Yeah, that's concerning. If I see a load, or if I'm posting up a load, hey, I got a load posted for $1,500. Oh, okay, $1,500. Oh, okay, we'll do it for $13. Why would anybody do that? Unless their intentions are malicious to take it for $13, they'll do this. They'll take it for $13, even though it was posted for $15. And then they'll double broker it out to some other trucking company and pay them $6,000. And that other trucking company's like, oh my gosh, I just got a gold nugget. And then they have a fake rate confirmation. And then they take it to the delivery. They deliver it. They get a rate con. They get a POD and a BOL. And then they give that to the double brokering party. And that double brokering party takes their $1,300 at Raycon and their POD and BOL and sends it to the factor, and then that carrier that thought they were getting $6,000 doesn't get paid anything, and they were just a mule. They were just being used. So it's kind of concerning if I have something posted for $1,500 and somebody calls me and says they're going to do it for $13. That doesn't even make sense. I'd rather just hang up the phone and take the next phone call to book the load with somebody else that uses logic, because if it goes up in price, you're going to make more money, and yet they're asking for less. That happens. Let's see here. Double brokering reports on Watchdog and whatever operates in a suspicious double brokering hotspot. Yeah, that's a thing. Bullet point number 9. Areas of concern is Illinois, specifically Chicago, when we're, this number 4 right here, talking about the P.O. box and the address that's associated with the carrier that we see on FMCSA. If we see Chicago, we might say, hey, we can't work with you unless you're in business for, at least a year. It's required just a year. You have to be in business for a year for us to work with you. But all other carriers in all other states, you can be in business for 90 days and we'll work in you. But for some reason, there's just so much more fraud in Illinois, specifically Chicago. There's a lot more fraud reported down in Florida. Don't know why. There's just a lot more fraud in Florida. And there's a lot more fraud in California. That's an obvious, you can understand why. That's an interesting bullet point, and it's true. Let's see, number 10, know or disproportion low vehicle inspection compared to power units reported on. Yeah, I don't know. I think as a broker, I wouldn't really worry too much about number 10. The font's a little bit smaller with this one. Sorry, it was a long list and it was kind of cool, so I wanted to share this with you. Request for quick pay, bullet point number 11. That's, as a freight factoring company, a good perspective that I'm able to give the carriers that I work with through my same-day deposit and factoring services is if you're a carrier and you're trying to book a load with a broker, and you immediately say, hey, I want to get paid on broker quick pay on this load, and that broker's never done a load with you before, the broker's going to be iffy about that. What they really want is they want a carrier to produce a notice of assignment that says the carrier's name and that there's a factoring company, because that factoring company has given that carrier a line of credit to do $100,000 or $500,000 worth of business monthly every 30 days. So by receiving a notice of assignment as a broker, I've asked the carrier to provide, because that's typically part of the carrier setup packet with a broker. With a broker, you need your insurance, COI, you need a W-9, you need a notice of assignment, and you need to fill out the broker carrier setup packet. And with that, it's like, oh, here's the notice of assignment. It means that this carrier factors their loads for same-day deposits with a factoring company. It means they went through that setup process with a factoring company. It means I now have another phone number if I needed to call the factoring company and use that factoring company as a reference to speak on the behalf of this carrier. If they're a good carrier or not, I can do that. It's another phone number, it's another document, and it shows a line of credit of capital. Okay, we're going to pay this carrier with factoring. But if the carrier has never done a load with a broker before, brand new broker, TQL, CH Robinson, JB Hunt, Coyote, whoever, if that carrier has never done a load with that broker before and they try to do quick pay, I'd rather we do this through your factoring company than paying you through quick pay on your first load or on your first 25 loads, to be completely honest. So that's an advantage of having a factoring company, can help you get more business. Let's see here. 12, discrepancy on the number of drivers and equipment. Not really. I wouldn't be too concerned about that. Carrier has a small number of trucks plus broker authority. Yeah, we don't need to get into that. This could be another video. Bullet point 14, carrier affiliated with another address. Yeah, that's another thing. I know that back in the day there was some carrier out there when I was a broker. It was called Z Transportation, and there was like an office joke that they'd call in, but their address was associated with all these other addresses and phone numbers and emails. It was just a rat's nest, so we just avoided them altogether. Discrepancies in emails, that's a thing, whether it says dispatch at abctransport.com or at Gmail. If somebody calls in and says, they're with TQL, Total Quality Logistics, and they email you a Raycon from a Gmail, why would they do that? They should be emailing you from a at tql.com email address. I think levels of fraud that are outside of double brokering, somebody that's going to call you here in a little while today, and they'll tell you, hey, give me $500 and I'm going to give you dedicated lanes for the next 90 days. And carriers that are brand new, they're paying for it when they shouldn't be, and they're receiving it from somebody that says they're from Coyote or CH Robinson, and they should get an email that says at coyote.com, at tql.com, but they're getting it from some Gmail and they're paying somebody $500 for loads, and that's not smart. Don't do that. It doesn't work that way. A carrier using a dispatch service, not all dispatch service are involved in double brokering. You can dismiss that. 18 doesn't apply. I'd say 50% of carriers in the market use a dispatcher because they just want to focus on maintaining the truck, maintaining their drivers, and they just want to focus on driving. They don't want to do the administrative paperwork stuff. They don't want to do carrier onboarding setup packets. They don't want to do rate negotiation with brokers. I got plenty of guys that don't want to book their own stuff. So they use a dispatcher as their administrative assistant, like their factoring company works hand in hand with the dispatch to be administrative assistant. I would just discard 18. Carrier using a virtual office space. Yeah, sometimes we Google the addresses, and if I pull up an address, I did this a little while ago. Somebody was trying to move a load, and I Googled the address, and it was for, they said their address was in like Tampa, Florida, and that's where their brick and mortar was, in like a strip mall, right? But in reality, where it was in a strip mall, but it was at a Bed Bath & Beyond. The addresses didn't match up. And that Bed Bath & Beyond, you can see how long it's been at that retail location for like 10 years. And some other address, other carrier was saying that was their address when it really wasn't. So looking at addresses and making sure those things add up. Vet notice of assignment. Yeah, we talked about that. The factoring company. Yeah. So anyway, long story short, this is a 21-minute video. We can stop it right there. Thanks for hanging in there. But I think it was educational. Anyway, maybe go back and hit pause and read some of those bullet points again. But going over this again, double brokering, the illegal dark side of the freight industry. I appreciate your attention, and I'll catch you on the next video. Bye.